Bună tuturor, suntem la RDW Talks, sper că ați savurat și alte discuții din această serie. Sunt Mihai Gurei și îmi face plăcere să vorbesc cu două invitate astăzi. O să trec pe engleză pentru că discuția va fi de natura asta, așa că sper că vă descurcați și să urmăriți discuția noastră în engleză. Hello, I'm switching to English now. Thank you very much for joining me. On my left, it's Annemarie O Sullivan. She's a basket weaver,
that's right,
basically. On my right, it's Cristiana Tăutu from British Council. Let's say she's taking care of the program we are talking today. We already had another talk on this regard. I'm very excited to see British creatives coming again to Romania and being involved in projects with local artisans and designers. So I will give a little bit of background information about the program. It's called Circular Catalysts, and it's a part of a larger program which is called Circular Cultures. British Council is trying to steer a little bit partnerships between local designers and craftsmen and British designers and craftsmen. And the idea is to generate a sort of momentum from where we can create opportunities, especially for the rural areas, to rediscover crafts, to find new ways to create, let's say, a more sustainable economy, to maybe to train young people or retrain young people to discover local crafts. This program will be also presented during Romanian Design Week. Yeah, we will talk about this, but first I would like to ask Annemarie to give us a little bit of information about her background. How did you end up doing baskets in the 21st century?
Okay, well, that's a long story. We were talking a little bit before this recording, and I was saying, you know, as a young person, I was a swimmer, and my dreams and my I suppose my thoughts were all about movement and lines, and somehow I was drawn into making and drawn very, very specifically to baskets, but not until I was 30. So I think that's often the case, certainly in Britain and Ireland, where people enter into craft as almost like a second career. So age 30 is often the point that people start. And I think that's mainly because there isn't an easy entry point earlier on, and people are walking away from their families who've maybe been makers and holders of craft traditions. So, you know, I stumbled upon it accidentally. I just fell in love immediately. I did a 2-day course, and it was like an epiphany. So my story is kind of unusual, but I was convinced from that very first moment where I tried something that it was almost like, you know, I have to say it was an experience like I fully became human, or I was remembering something, remembering to be a human being, and so much more of my kind of, I don't know, the complications of life totally fell away when I started this making. And I still feel like I'm a beginner. I mean, I've been doing it for 20 years now, but I still feel like I'm just discovering.
Very interesting. And my impression is that more and more people are willing to try to find something else inside them and express that. And I can see that, especially I'm 49 years old, and I can see a lot of friends and people around us that they are discovering something new about them. They want to learn something new. They want to learn a craft. They start dancing. They start baking and doing all stuff. And I think it's a way of living your life that wasn't available for older generations. It was not supposed to change your career. It was supposed to do something, maybe take your family business and move it forward. But I feel that people are starting more and more to think about their life as an opportunity to pivot several times to different other jobs or careers or...
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And you know, like if you look at, you know, a lot of people who, have, I don't know, if I think about my own family, there was lots of making going on, but it wasn't really considered making. So we were talking about, you know, all my clothes were handmade. And I was embarrassed by them. All my jumpers were knitted. I really wanted something from a shop. You know, so there's this great sense that when people ask me, oh, do you come from a family of makers? And I think, no, I didn't, because I've erased that section that actually all the women of the family made clothes and, you know, made every bit of food and, you know, baked cakes and did all these things that now people are really, really looking to. I mean, you know, in some ways, certainly in the UK and Ireland, it's, you know, all of those pursuits are very much middle-class pursuits. And actually, in the UK, it's so difficult to have contact with intergenerational families, you know, who have been makers, who are holding really important traditions. So sorry, I've covered a lot of ground there and meandered.
It's a very interesting subject. Do you want to add something?
I did actually, because we were discussing yesterday that somehow this making was embedded in the way our families used to live, but it was so normalized.
Yes.
Somehow it and we wanted to recover. And also in Romania, of course, capitalism hit, and then everybody wanted branded materials and things like that. But I also believe, and when talking about sustainability, we use this fancy word, or maybe trendy word, let's say. But if you think about our grandparents, our parents, they used to live much more sustainable than we do, and still do in ways. So
and also I think we lost a lot of our autonomy during the last decades. Now we are dependent on different services and people to provide us with sometimes basic things like breakfast, you know. And I recently discovered the joy of cleaning the house. I used to do it as a kid and I hate it. But for a couple of years already I'm doing by myself and I really enjoy it, especially when I'm alone in the house. It's really, really satisfying for me to clean the house. And things that used to be, as you said, basic things are rediscovered right now. But the interesting thing is that, as in your case and many other cases, it is rediscovered, but there is an extra layer on it, because it's this layer of conceptualization of the process, the way you make it, the way you find economic ways to sustain your business, the way it's presented. We were talking about your beautiful website. So now we are in a process where these basic activities in a household are on a center stage from a different point of view. That helps us also internalize a little bit this and put it in a perspective and discuss more about what it's a good life, like a circular life, like sustainable life is. And I think it's an amazing opportunity for people to discover something about themselves. They will not do all the things that our grandparents used to do, but for sure they will find joy in doing a couple of things like this, and in a more, let's say, contemporary way.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, I feel Tom and I do this work because we want to make a certain kind of life. It is all about making a life, and all the choices that we make are very much about the way we want to live, the way we want to show our children the world, even if our children really want to. You know, our children have always said they want to live in a house with carpets and a really big television, and they're never going to get it. But I feel we were talking yesterday about sustainability, and I was in an interview panel a little while ago where I was asked about whether, if sustainability was at the forefront of what I did, and I thought, no, sustainability isn't my policy. There isn't I haven't written a policy that is part of my brand. It's just the choice I make every day. It's like an essential way to be. There isn't really another option for me in terms of the way I want to live. And of course, we all have to make lots of different choices that are not so great. But that's just central. It's embedded in the way I live and work. And, I suppose as makers, we tend to live and work in quite isolated ways. I'm working with an object. I'm repeating a pattern over and over again. And, so there's a certain isolation. And then I turn away and look at the world and think, oh my God, everyone else is doing something really different to me. How did this happen? It's
somehow selfish, but from this return to ourselves, some great things can appear, I think. And it's like a dirty word to be selfish in this world. But selfish means you are focused on yourself first, and then you can discover something else that you can share with the world. I think it's a more sustainable way of living, let's say.
I agree, and making brings me hope, because that ritual of being in the workshop on my own, which is actually quite rare because we have a lot of other people working with us, but that when I go into the workshop and I'm working on my own and I am moving a willow rod in front of two stakes and behind one, and I'm doing this again and again, and I understand that the gesture that my hand makes becomes part of the work. And I feel like, as soon as I started doing this work, it was like a remembering. It was like there was some part of my brain or my body that was completely closed and had always been there. And I opened it up, and it makes me think, hey, all humans are capable of this. And it's, it is very nurturing, and it is wonderful to do it. I mean, it's also very difficult running a business and very challenging, and we all have admin and emails and all that stuff that we don't really want to do all the time, but there is a great sense of holding the thing in my body and my brain that humans have done for thousands of years, since the beginning of making a vessel, that to put the things in that they needed to move from one place to another. And that's somehow makes me feel really hopeful.
For sure, I can imagine that.
And if I may, I just want to add that Annemarie and Tom have the best out-of-office messages. The first time I got one was, "We're harvesting willow. We'll get back to you soon." And this goes to the fact that you are actually... I think this is quite specific and interesting and particular, that they are harvesting the materials they are using in their work. So
yeah, that's right.
So
we grow about 20 different types of willows, and that doesn't fully sustain what we use. So we do buy some willow in, but the willows. So this is part of the picture as well. That 10, 12 years ago, we planted willow. So that meant taking willow cuttings, so just like a small live stick, about 30 centimetres long, and planting them in rows very close to each other. So the really lovely bit of the story is that all of those cuttings were given to me by other makers and growers, all in Britain and Ireland and France. And they had received them from the basket makers and the growers before them, and before them, and before them, and before them. So we're holding on to these plants which have been, you know, I feel like I'm standing in a long line, and it makes my sense of being human just very, very different. I feel like it was peculiarly life-changing, seeing my place in the world when I planted them. You know, even though I'm just planting willow, you know, so what? But there's something about standing in that lineage that feels really powerful. And yet there is something about growing. We harvest once a year in January. Like, you know, you got my out of office when we were harvesting. We cut everything down to the ground, and it's really brutal. We take every single little bit of growth, and we take that away and sort it and use it. And then in the meantime, the willow that's left, we call them stools. So the I don't know what's left in the ground.
So
that shoots
left of a
like
trunk.
a stump. Yeah. It's like it's right down on the ground, and then that shoots up again. And each year, well, for about 5 or 6 years, you get more and more growth. So the more you cut it, the more you get. And it's just this sense of wonder. Every single year I go back, I feel like a 5-year-old. Like I'm going, wow, it's grown again. I mean, how did it do that? I mean, we just take so much for granted, but that sense of wonder, it's like a gigantic slap in the face every single year. I can't imagine not experiencing it. So that's part of this picture for me. So the idea of, you know, buying in lots of material, which would be a lot easier, I'd be without this whole sense of richness, you know, that feeds into my life and my being.
And this connects your practice to craftsmade practice. You will find out how they have planted trees, and they are growing them for years and years, and they're only cutting the ones. The process of connecting to the material you're working with. I think this is very rich, because most of us have lost the connection to materials, and, you know, like you have this table, but where does this wooden come from?
It was the subject of another talk that you should watch. We talk exactly about the fact that most of the young designers are trained to use materials they don't have any kind of connection with. It's like working on, I don't know, something coming from out of space. And they miss the opportunity to research their way through the material, to discover their way to the material, to discover their design language through the experience of working with the material, to the limitations of working with the material. So all these challenges, in fact, are giving you a completely new perspective on what can you shape with your creativity. And hopefully things will start to change also in our let's say academic education, and I'm hopefully we'll see more and more processes, talks about processes. I would like to see also in the Romanian Design exhibition not complete objects, but maybe someone trying to do an object, because we are so focused on the objective of a finished product that we miss the opportunity to go there, to take this journey and discover everything related with the whole process along the way. And it was really interesting what you said, that you start with to see that plant, that amazing plant growing back, and then you have the opportunity to take each step until the finished product. And when you finish a basket, it's like, I don't know, finishing a friendship or something. It's a very personal journey. I can imagine that.
And sometimes it's not a friendship, because sometimes I get to the end and think, oh, that looks bad, or, you know, I wasn't feeling great when I made that, and I can really see it.
Yeah.
And in that case, it might go on the fire outside. I might burn it, and then it's gone.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, there's nothing left.
Yes.
And then, but it's a really interesting question, that idea of kind of, you know, a material-based investigation. So I don't make anything really that doesn't stem from the original material. So I will take the willow or whatever it might be and bend it and curve it and test it and boil it and mash it. And, you know, I really like that idea that you try everything with that material. But that would be the starting point for anything I would make with anything, with fabric, with anything, you know. And it brings me back to this, it makes me think about, I did a project a few years ago with an architect. We were putting in a proposal for a building, and it was a competition. And his idea was that we mock up, and I don't want to be mean to architects here, but that we mock up and come up with this like crazy wild idea. And I was like, but how will we make this on a big scale if I've taken a tiny bit of lapping cane, a very thin material that bends in a certain way, and we make something that's 20 centimeters tall, but actually the building might be 10 meters tall. We're not going to find a material that works in that way. And his idea was, oh, no, we just wait and see, do we win the competition, and then we figure out that question. And for me, that felt like an impossible idea, you know, that actually you want to start. I mean, that's a very difficult thing if you're building a 10-meter material, you know, that you find that material and then you work backwards. Yeah. But I think more and more with designers and certainly with architects, I did a workshop quite recently with some second-year architecture students, and we were working on a small scale, and most of them, I had to keep reminding them to put their phone down because they couldn't manage to bend anything because they had their phone in one hand, and they were totally unused to handling any materials at all. And for me, I was so shocked. I couldn't quite believe the gap they had. And I'm guessing that this is part of everyday culture all over, as you know, the world becomes homogenized and every child does their homework on a laptop, and that becomes a normal part of life.
But I'm pretty sure people will start to go back to their roots in a way or another that we cannot predict right now. Even not artificial intelligence cannot predict what human can do when they are moved toward this digitalization, complete digitalization of the society. They don't use their hands too much. They don't use their body. They don't use the movement. As you said, movement is part of our life, and we are animals that we cannot sit on a chair for 8 hours. So I'm pretty sure people will discover new languages for recreating the movement of the body, discovering the way they can interact with materials, with the universe. I'm pretty sure about it. I will not end in a doomsday, I'm pretty sure. But it's very difficult to predict right now how things will evolve. But coming back to what is happening right now for the Romanian Design Week, in fact, our discussion, it's right before the starting of this workshop. So I would ask you, Cristiana, to give us a little bit of context. What is going to happen in the next week, or how much time it is?
So just a little bit of the broader context, which is that the Circular Catalyst program is aiming to set the basis, let's say, for more collaboration and more understanding between the UK and Romanian sector. So this is a work that we started almost 4 years ago, looking at the craft sector as let's say something that's specific and also quite interesting about the Romanian sector. And I think this is a very interesting matching. Also, not sure how many people know that Romania, 90% of the entire land of Romania is rural. And during communist time, because we didn't have that much investment in infrastructure, let's say, somehow this created a very pragmatic relationship with nature and a better biodiversity, and somehow this, I think, is the terrain in which we're working with, because in the West, let's say in the UK, I think rural is completely different than what we have here. So we're aiming to have these 5 different studios and individuals that are coming, to take them in different places of rural Romania and to understand the reality and get infused by this direct connection with nature, which has been left as it is, but also to explore the themes of how is the traditional knowledge system still kept and transmitted to the urban area, to the global context. How do we keep what's important and valuable from the traditional knowledge system to innovate about a better future? So we're hoping to somehow infuse the local sector with these ideas, and also to explore the potential of crafts in the well-being of communities, because it has a huge potential. And just today I found out that, for example, in Romania, people with visual impairments, at some point they were legally not allowed to go to university, so to further education, and they started some schools for them to weave.
I think this is quite common, actually. Okay. I think across Britain it's the same thing. I guess across Europe. I don't know the history, but I'm as far as I know, that's pretty common. And I think really it's fascinating that it would be just about a tactile and a repetitive movement, and not about the visual.
Yeah, I guess. And also, I mean, the way, and this is where I think we have something to learn from the UK, how, especially when talking about marginalized groups or vulnerable groups, let's say, crafts can be a huge potential to make people come together, work together, and even economically might be a good way to look about a sustainable future and sustainable development for rural areas. So
yeah, I think when you think about that, in Britain, I would say, in terms of so my own field, basket making, there aren't that many commercial makers, or there aren't that many people who are making a living from basket making. If I look at France, it's a very different story. So in France, there are quite large cooperatives where they grow and make, and there are schools of basket making still in existence, where they're carrying forward traditions, and alongside that sit a lot of innovative makers. So that's really quite interesting. And for me, although I come from Ireland, I've lived in England for many years, and I've always been looking beyond the UK for my making. I trained with lots of different materials and techniques from all over the world, but I'm firmly rooted in willow basket making. But I've looked at these traditions all over, and France and Germany have much stronger traditions than anywhere else, and still have the training, although I think it's struggling.
But I also think that cooperatives can be a solution for many European countries, because in a cooperative you can combine craft making with other opportunities to have like a sort of centralized warehouse, to have a website, to have commercial people involved. Also through cooperatives you can access grants, you can access European money. So also in Romania, hopefully even through your program, we might infuse people with this spirit, this entrepreneurial spirit, and this cooperation spirit that somehow it's still struggling in Romania. We have difficulties to cooperate. I don't know, something is lost from this spirit, but hopefully through more and more initiatives and through this talks for the edition from this year of Romanian Design Week, I saw more and more initiatives where different associations and NGOs, even let's say stakeholders are involved together to create something new. And when you put more people on the table, you get some amazing stuff. That's for sure.
Well, our program, the Circular Catalyst program, is all about collaboration and about putting some examples in front, which are both Romanian and from the UK, that actually can work together. And this is also one of the questions: how do we work together in the future, let's say? So just to come back to your question and finish with the information about the program, basically what's happening is that starting with March and April, we have 5 residencies around the country. Each residency is documented, and we're keeping parts of the process. So we're interested in materials, processes, more than, we haven't asked, or the outcome for these residencies is not to create an object
or collection or something,
exactly, but more about collaboration, working together, sharing know-how, knowledge, processes, practices. So we don't really know what will happen after this year, and we're leaving this conversation open so that after we have a chance to reflect over it. So and even all the matching has been done collaboratively. The way the program has been designed was involving stakeholders from Romania, especially, to see what the needs are and how we could put everything together. So we are looking at the subject, and I truly believe that at least here, lack of funding has generated lack of collaboration, because everybody's so focused on making a living, exactly,
yes.
That there's little space for this sort of experiences that allow time, I guess, for people to actually know each other, create a meaningful connection. And
also there is we are still struggle to keep graduates from design schools working on their design, because it's very difficult to find a job in this specific field. They tend to work in advertising agencies, or they go to corporations. So all of their time it's dedicated to make a living, to get a salary. But hopefully we will see more and more, especially young designers, committed to working on designs, committed to work on commissions, to work together with partners that can fund their research and their processes. This is something that I would also push companies, larger companies, to create opportunities for young designers to work more on their processes, on their research, on interacting with material, on interacting with craftsmen, learning the craft, going to small communities, because there are some leftovers around the country, and if we manage to move a little bit quicker, I'm pretty sure we can discover some amazing potential working with these communities,
and use this as an advantage in the conversation about sustainable development. Let's say,
also creating a sort of interest around Romanian design, because we are still trying to find our identity, to find our voice in the international design market. And there are some hopes. We can see some improvements, but if we don't go through the process, if you don't go through discovering materials, local materials, sustainable materials, it's going to be difficult for us to find the true voice. And I'm really grateful that you decided to try this experience coming to Romania. I'm pretty sure you'll be amazed about how our rural area look. Sometimes you might feel as in a movie set, because things are quite
Sturița movies.
yes. You're going to see a lot of horses, and it's animals on the street and stuff like this. But a part of that, I'm really looking forward for you to discover Romanian spirit, the way we approach communal work, the way we approach nature. And I'm pretty sure you'll be also inspired by how your experience will be. And in the future, hopefully, we'll see Romanian British projects, maybe in London, maybe in Bucharest, because we also need this kind of cross-pollination. When we look at, for example, interior design, public spaces in Romania, there are not so many spaces that have like a local feel, you know.
Well, in this direction, I can say that the exhibition that we're preparing for Romanian Design Week will then travel to Timișoara, which is the capital of culture this year, and then to London and Birmingham. So we are looking at the Romanian community in the UK, which is quite big at this point. So touching communities over there, but also trying to connect with the local professional community. So hopefully this is a beginning of something. We'll see how it goes.
I've just while the two of you have been speaking, and I've just been feeling really, really excited about the week ahead, and what I'm going to see, and just the sharing already. The conversations we've had make it feel all the richer. But there's a word, an Irish word, which is boon. I don't know if you've come across the word boon. People say, you know, when something really great happens, that's a boon. And boon is when the word originates from when it was harvest time, and all the farmers of a local area would congregate at one farm and help that farmer to complete their harvest, and then they'd move to the next farm, and then to the next farm, and having this support and help and connection and momentum is a boon. I mean, you can imagine that being faced with a massive harvest on your own, and then this team of people show up to help you, and I think that's what I really imagine this project is going to be. I can't wait. I mean, I don't want to rush it, but I don't want to be out the other side. But I also really look forward to seeing the results for everybody, you know, how it pays off for everybody. So thank you so much for having me.
No problem. And I'm also looking forward to see the exhibition for the moment, and hopefully some other projects in the future with the help of British Council. I'm also grateful for their initiative. It's very important for cultural institutes in Romania to create opportunity for this kind of exchanges. It's not a question of funding, it's a question of initiative and finding the right partners, because sometimes you don't need so much, let's say, investment in order to organize some workshops, invite some guests, and try to put different people from different backgrounds and different cultures on the same table. This is important, and we are still feeling that Great Britain is part of Europe. I'm sorry to say that, but we never felt you exit something, because the European spirit is there. It's always there, and it's always been there. Yeah. So for me, this is something very fulfilling, emotionally and also spiritually fulfilling. Thank you very much, Annemarie and Cristiana. If you want to check out more, and I will encourage you to check out more about what Annemarie and Tom are doing, you should check studioamos.co.uk. It's a brand new website with lots of amazing pictures, and hopefully it's gonna be an opportunity for you maybe to think about this type of living, this type of career. You can create income opportunities in different ways. You can make workshops, you can sell your products, you can create bespoke objects. There are many things that you can combine with this type of design approach, let's say.
And if I may, I would also encourage people to check British Council Romania website. Under our work in arts, basically you'll find information about the entire program, and it's still under, it gets updated with a couple of more activities happening during Romanian Design Week, which is starting on the 12th of May.
Exactly. So thank you very much. Check out the other videos from the RDW Talks series. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.